What is up, guys? We are back, and I do mean we. For the first time in months, we're going to be having some of the old crew back to help us with today's video. It's going to be a real smorgasbord of talents, and for the first time ever, we are going to be bringing another dimension into our League of Legends redesigns. But before I get ahead of myself, allow me to introduce the subject of today's video, Shyvana, the Half Dragon. Like all of our previous champions that we've selected to redesign, Shyvana is old. One of the oldest champions in the game, being released just over 2 years after the launch of the game. Like so many of these OG champions, Shyvana finds herself somewhat out of place among League's current champion lineup. Her design feels dated, poorly thought out, and unexciting. And while she has received minor visual tweaks in an attempt to modernize her look, her in-game model and animations are still stiff, lifeless, and awkward.
Holy shit, what a fuck.
Now, just to be clear, I love Shyvana. She was one of the first champions I ever played in League of Legends, and she's still, to this day, my most played character. I mean, why wouldn't I pick her? At the time I started playing, she was the only playable dragon character. It seemed pretty awesome, and I was able to overlook how boring she was for a while just because it felt so cool sweeping through the battlefields on fiery wings, blasting enemies with jets of fire, and tearing them to shreds with my massive claws. But the more I played, the more new champions were released, and the more old champions received complete visual gameplay updates, the more I realized, damn, Shyvana deserves better. I mean, yeah, she has a couple of skins that almost make me forget how janky her old design is, but the problem with antique characters like this is that no matter how cool the design of their skin may be, or how many shiny particle effects they add, I still have to watch this poor lady jerk her legs around the map with the same level of dexterity most commonly associated with Barbie dolls. And yeah, her human design is boring, but her dragon design is just insulting. I mean, look at this. What was going through the designers' heads when they came up with this? Ah yes, a tanky bruiser with crushing claws and an above-average health pool, yet make her as skinny as possible. I guess, to be fair, they really didn't give a shit about any dragon in the game at this point. I mean, look at this poor thing. This is what the NPC dragon used to look like. God, forgive me if I sound too heated. I love dragons. They're a character designer's excuse to create whatever they want to fit their world, their story, their game design. And when I see dragons that clearly have as much thought put into them as a direct-to-DVD Disney knockoff, it just makes me mad. Now, of course, Riot has changed a lot about their game since Shyvana's release. The dragon boss, now called the Elemental Drakes, has been completely redesigned. And there's even a new playable dragon champion, Aurelion Sol. Proof that they can design a cool-looking dragon, and moreover, one of the coolest dragon designs that I've ever seen. Full stop. But while all of this change and improvement blesses the Rift, Shyvana is forced to sit back and watch as her world leaves her behind. Taking the back seat to other old champions as Riot continues to hand out VGUs, and even going without a new skin for well over 4 years. Well, no longer. Today, we give Shyvana the care and attention that she deserves. Today, my main becomes as cool to the rest of the world as she's always seemed to me. Today, we redesign Shyvana. Now, of course, any good character design starts with a good story, and shockingly enough, Shyvana's current canonical lore is actually quite compelling. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Shyvana's mother was a dragon. Not just any dragon, but a rare elemental drake of fire. Any current League player knows these dragons well. She was born into a clutch of eggs, closely guarded by her hot-tempered mommy. But Mama messed up. A mage managed to successfully sneak into the nest, steal an egg, and escape with his life. His goal originally was to sell the egg, but when it unexpectedly hatched, he found himself playing father figure to a little purple baby, far more human than dragon. Named Shyvana after her mother Yiva, the young girl grew quickly, and at a young age, it became clear that her dragon heritage was far more relevant than it first had seemed. She could freely transform between her humanoid and dragon shape, and possessed magical abilities far beyond that of even her mother. But speaking of Mama Drake, you remember her? Yeah, she hadn't quite given up the search for her missing egg. She found young Shyvana and her mage stepdad, and in a cataclysmic fit of rage, killed the man who had raised her daughter and destroyed a small village while she was at it. Now alone, without anything to even pretend to be her family, Shyvana set off to make her own way in the world. Sometime later, our little dragon lady found herself face to face with none other than the Prince of Demacia himself, Jarvan IV. He had been hurt pretty bad, but determined not to let another life slip through her fingers, Shyvana escorted him back to a Demacian stronghold. And just in time, as it turned out, because Mama Yiva was still hot on her daughter's trail. The massive drake appeared before the garrison, and Shyvana knew what she must do. Filled with a vengeful fury for the death of the man whom her mother had killed, Shyvana leapt into the air, transforming as she flew, and clashed with the dragon in a whirlwind of claws and flames. When the smoke had cleared, Shyvana stood victorious over the body of her slain mother, and she, along with Jarvan and the many other Demacian lives she had saved, returned to the city, bringing with them the skull of Yiva as a token of their victory. The prince, grateful for his savior's noble deeds, appointed Shyvana to a position at his side as one of his royal guards. But now, even among the people whose lives she had saved, Shyvana is still an outcast. Untrusted by many within the walls of the city, and with all ties to her true family destroyed by her own doing, Shyvana is of two worlds, yet belongs to neither. And with that little story time out of the way, we're ready to begin our process of redesigning this character. And to help me do this design right, I'll ask that you all join me in welcoming Jane back to the channel.
Hello again. For the second time. Some of you may remember me, some of you may have never met me. My name's Jane. I've been part of Subjectively since, day one. Yeah, I'm a character designer, concept artist, animator. I do a bunch of different things. Avid League player, gamer.
I've been playing Shyvana, like I said, for a really long time. Obviously, there are things about her that I feel like there's a lot of potential that she has. And so let's just start there. Let's just start with what it is that we appreciate Shyvana. What about her we look at and we say, okay, yeah, there's room for something cool here, even if what we're looking at is not cool.
We think her helmet is a pretty strong silhouette, and the shape just consistently works well in League of Legends. It's used in so many different characters. You know, I think her color scheme isn't terrible, but as Jack had mentioned earlier, how can we connect her more to her lore and less of just like a fantasy dragon?
Yeah.
And honestly, I had a point here that I wrote down. I actually don't mind her dragon leggings.
No.
I think they're kind of fun. I have more of a problem with just her armor being like the only dragon visual motif other than her skin being purple and her having like kind of scales for ribs, for like not ribs, abs.
Yeah, she's got like scale abs. I like her leggings because I like the idea of her being more top heavy and having like very slender legs. I think that's something that you and I, Jane, both like in character designs, is like the big top half and the skinny lower half, but they can push it more.
Something I found a little challenging was the amount of skin I wanted exposed versus like, because her lore is that she's purple, like she's a purple person. But like I didn't want to expose too much of her because I don't like when characters are over sexualized.
Mm-hmm.
So I was exposing more of like her like biceps and neck and I guess a little bit of her tummy.
There is a lot of potential for, compelling character development with Shyvana. You know, she starts off an infant child. She was supposed to hatch a dragon. She ended up being some sort of half human, half mage, half dragon kind of thing. She grew up, lost her father figure, had to confront her mother figure. Mother wants to kill her. Then she finds some Demacian prince, saves his life, brings him back to the city, and then she saves the city from being attacked by her mother, has to kill her mother, and now she lives in Demacia. She is being discriminated against because she is like a mage person, dragon person, and she's got to deal with that now. So there's so much that could be reflected in just her personality of this character that I wish would show a little bit more.
Yeah, her lore doesn't really come through other than the fact that she's purple and also dragon themed.
They nailed the purple. The purple they got.
They got that.
We got the purple. One of the things that we really want to focus in on, I think our main points, I think that we want to focus on with this redesign is bringing in some more of the elemental drake into her look. Every player who has been playing League of Legends for the past even 5 years knows what the elemental drakes look like. They're familiar with them. They see them in every single game. Shyvana doesn't look anything like that, so we want to bring that into her design in some way. And the other thing we want to bring into her design a little bit more is her ties to Demacia, because she is a Demacian character. She lives in Demacia, she serves the prince, She is a royal guard. She protects him. She saved Demacia from being attacked by a dragon, but she doesn't really fit in there. So that's a lot. It's a lot.
We cannot skip over just briefly talking about her dragon form.
Yes.
Because that,
Oh my
I mean,
god.
that ties in with everything we've already said, but just to briefly talk about it.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Because that's actually more painful than
So
her
much worse.
original design in the first place. It's just so hard to look at.
With this dragon
Just
form.
briefly need to talk about her shorts.
She's wearing pants. She's
She's
got her
literally
armor.
wearing armor pants and has human legs and dragon feet and like human biceps, kind of under boob armor.
So skinny.
Like, it's very confusing. Her wings make absolutely no sense.
What is going on with those wings?
It just doesn't look like she could even stand up like on all four legs. Like, she looks so weak. I don't know. It's just
skinny.
crazy looking. Yeah, she's so skinny.
I don't get it. And I only did one sketch for a dragon rework because I don't think I would focus more on her human rework because I think, like I said, they have the elemental drakes. I feel like they could pretty much go off of that. My reworked sketch for the dragon was more or less looking like one of the elemental drakes, bulkier. She in most cases,
yeah, this is perfect.
A brawler. Sometimes she's a tank. So I don't know why she looks so skinny. I kept the like quadrupedal. If she wants to walk on her wings, she could definitely do that. But I made her wings look more like wings. If she wanted to spread her wings at some point, she could. I think that they don't necessarily need to make her fly. I'm not planning on changing anything too much with her gameplay in this rework. You were talking about before our recording cut off the idea for her getting specific visual changes depending on which dragon buff she gets or how many dragon buffs that she gets for her team.
Yep. Soul.
Yeah.
Which could be cool.
Yeah, soul, like when the team gets soul, maybe she gets kind of a different color scheme or she maybe gains a new ability or something. I think that would be really cool thing to include in her rework gameplay wise. And maybe her design would change a little bit for each drake she gets or which soul that the team picks up. But I do want her to look more like one of the elemental drakes. I would love to see a much more involved animation for when she's switching forms into her dragon form, because right now she just shoots forward and it's just one frame she's a human, one frame she's a dragon. I would like to see something where she gets kind of like a running start. Maybe there's a channeling phase where she gets a running start in one direction, leaps up into the air, kind of cloaks herself in fire, and then
I can see that.
slams down like Volibear's ult, his new ult. I love the way that looks. I like how he comes up, gets bigger in the air, and by the time he reaches the ground, he's twice the size as he was before. And I would love to see something like that. Maybe she has some sort of knockback thing when she hits the ground. She has kind of an AoE explosion. So that's her dragon form. But now going back more to her human form, or you had this one sketch that I really liked with the big shield arm, skull arm, and I really liked that.
Yeah, so this is actually the first one I did, and it was just sort of immediately after reading her lore and the whole killing her mom thing, and I wanted to implement some pretty obvious visual representation of that by just having her arm be a giant dragon head. Whether I'm almost imagining there's like a bar inside of it that she's holding on to, and it's almost like either it's an arm cannon or it's like a shield or just like a bashing weapon.
I had one arm that was really heavily armored and clawed and had sort of the same sort of dragon skull motif on the shoulder, a lot less exaggerated. And the other arm was less armored, but she would cast spells from that arm. She could have fire claws or fire balls launched, whatever. Because right now when she shoots fireballs in her human form, she puts her two claws together so that her two gauntlets look like a dragon mouth, which is kind of interesting.
I think that's pretty funny, but it definitely almost a little too goofy for my taste.
It doesn't look as cool as I think they thought they wanted
it
to look. But I would like to take your over-exaggerated big dragon gauntlet and bring that into that design.
For this, it was actually a tail.
Okay.
Part of me, I was imagining I was going to do some other iterations where it was hair, as you said. I was also thinking it could be fiery, spiritual, like, representation of, like, her dragon form is always trailing behind her. Like, I don't know. I really just wanted to take this because when I design, I do one and then I'm like, all right, let's try the other extreme.
Okay,
this was the second one I did.
I like that.
This one was more based around her, she's like getting revenge. She's super angry. Like her life story is
Yeah.
and she's just more primal and bestial, and
It's a good word for it. When it comes to her tail, now I think that, I don't know how I feel about actually having a tail or not. I like that her braid in the game as they have it now, that her long hair is sort of mimics the shape of a tail without actually explicitly being a tail.
yeah, I like that too.
And
I don't like her tiny little puny braids.
No, the little like side braids.
I don't think those are even necessary.
No.
I don't see them.
No.
But her big braid is cool,
Yeah.
mimicking a tail.
But I think maybe what I could do with the way you have this tail designed is making it a little bit thicker and having it sort of inform the motion of her entire body. Oh, let's talk about capes. Let's talk about capes for a second, because we both did one design with a cape, and it's kind of, it's got a similar approach to it, where it's like this one shoulder is draped over with a cape, and you went for more of a wing thing, which I think is very cool. For my cape, I was leaning into the fire side. I don't know. What are you thinking with cape wise?
I think your concept for a fire cape is really cool, but I think we both agreed that, as you said, with the elemental influence, that, yeah, the buffs and influence that could be implemented into her design, fire is just limiting if that's like her default.
Yeah.
And I went with the idea of a cape to keep it along the mage sort of route we were going down,
Right.
With her lore and stuff. I definitely went a little over the top with the dragon aspect of it, because I kind of combined the idea of a cape with a dragon wing. Does that make sense? I don't know. Does it connect to her back? Who knows?
I think another thing that we both ended up doing in at least one of her designs is, it's a little bit different from the way she looks now, is adding a nose spike to her helmet. So we kept...
Yeah, we both did that.
Yeah.
I think we both like that in dragon concepts.
I just like that. And depending on where we settle on that, maybe I'll change the way her dragon form looks so that she has that nose spike in her dragon form too. And that way she looks a little bit more different from the elemental drakes, because none of them have that nose spike. So let's talk about, I'm going to write these things down actually, things that we want to see in the final design. One thing we want is big skull arm. We want dragging tail braid. And we want nose spike. And then in general, we want Demacia and elemental drakes. Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much, Jimbo.
Yeah,
And
thank
I'll
you,
talk
Jack.
with you a little bit later today, and we'll
Yeah.
share ideas.
After we swapped ideas, I went back to the drawing board, thinking about our main points for this redesign. Physically, we wanted to see the inclusion of her mother's skull incorporated as some part of her armor, decidedly a massive gauntlet on one of her arms. We also wanted a long, thick braid that would mimic the shape of a tail as she moved across the map, and a big, forward-facing horn on her helmet that would distinguish her from the other elemental drakes while she was in her dragon form. We also wanted to include enough visual ties to Demacia, and to her connection with the elemental drakes, without deviating too far from her original design. In my final sketch of the character, I employed Jane's use of disproportionate scaling to up the dynamism in Shyvana's shapes. Scaling up her melee gauntlet to the size of an actual dragon skull, as if she's wearing her mother's skull on her arm at all times. Her other arm would act as her mage gauntlet, relatively unarmored and glowing with magical fire. I reshaped her helmet to accommodate for her new, oversized braid. While we discussed the idea of actually turning her into a more dragonoid creature, even in her unaltered form, we ultimately decided that this may be too dramatic of a change for the character. However, this sketch Jane did of what she called the Godzilla Shyvana would make for an amazing character design of its own. Instead, I attempted to replicate the shape of the tail that she designed in the sketch with a massive braid of white-purple hair. This worked on two levels. The more straightforward of the two being that it gave her silhouette more dragon-like features, even in her human form. And on a more narrative level, it explains to an audience completely new to Shyvana that this is a character who is untamable by nature, with hair longer than she is tall. And yet, some part of her is struggling to keep that side of who she is restrained, strapping her wild mane into something like a neat braid so as to appear more presentable to her peers in Demacia. Finally, I applied the same changes to Shyvana's dragon form, adding on the horn, helmet armor, and chest armor to ensure that these two designs looked as if they were the same character in different forms. I also played up her white hair, connecting it visually with the elemental drakes, who all sport a mane made of either scales or feathers. To make sure that in the heat of battle, players wouldn't confuse Shyvana with the actual elemental drakes, I kept her original quadrupedal design, 2 hind legs and 2 forelimbs, that functioned as legs, claws, and actual flying wings. I also retained her iconic purple color scheme. In some VGUs, Riot completely abandons the original palettes of the characters that they're changing. We considered it for a while, debating whether or not to outfit Shyvana with whites and golds, as is often seen in Demacian warriors. In the end though, her red, purple, and gold color scheme was not only too iconic to change, but we concluded that it might be the most well thought out part of her initial design. It's enough like the royal sleek armor worn by other high-ranking Demacians, but different enough to convey that Shyvana stands out among their ranks. Not just because of her unique skill set as a fighter, but because of how she is perceived by the other people of Demacia who do not trust her. To them, she is volatile, untamable, and untrustworthy. And a part of Shyvana thinks that about herself as well. Now, with our colors finalized for both Shyvana's human form and her dragon form, I was ready to hand over this design to another member of our VGU team. Claire has been doing splash art for all of our previous League of Legends redesigns, and each one looks better and better. I sketched out a quick grayscale thumbnail for her to work off of, something that illustrated the full fury of Shyvana and that would showcase both her human and her dragon form. I realized as I drew it that not a single champion's default splash art is in full profile, but nevertheless, I was happy with the sketch, and I knew that Claire would work wonders with it once I handed it over to her. And finally, I'd like to reintroduce all of you to subjectively intern Cole, who has been promoted to official animator of the Shyvana rework team. Doing something we've never done before, Cole lended to us his skills as a motion graphics animator to bring Claire's splash art to life, in a similar fashion to how League's login screens used to be animated. Be sure to show Cole and the rest of the team some love down in the comments. I think that this redesign has been our most successful so far. From boring Barbie barbarian to bulky braided bruiser, from emaciated twig arms to a full-bodied dragon, we've taken Shyvana out of 2011 and into the modern day. No longer will she stand out like a sore, poorly articulated thumb amongst the likes of characters like Senna or Yone. No longer will her dragon form resemble a McDonald's Happy Meal toy from 1998. No longer will she be out-prioritized for a VGU by a purple Hulk who, to be fair, also desperately needed a rework. If only, right? Of course, these changes are all of our own make and design. Obviously, we don't work for Riot, and obviously, you should not be expecting this rework to hit the PBE anytime soon. But if this was official, what feedback would you leave for the devs over at headquarters? What would you want to have seen changed in Shyvana? Or do you think that she should stay the same? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Once again, I want to give a huge thank you to Jane, Claire, and Cole for helping turn this project into our most extensive League redesign yet. If you haven't already, be sure to follow them on social media. I'll leave the links down in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe for more similar content if you did. Enjoy the start of fall, everyone, and I will see you all in the next video.